Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for dropping by this video. I'm really excited to be here today and to share some of this information with you. And I'm really excited to be here because I'm still alive. And because of this, and the reason why I'm still alive is because of this information I'm going to share with you. My body was falling apart. And it was through some of these simple spiritual ideas, really universal life ideas, and a very simple practice, which I'm going to share, that my life is that I'm still alive and that I have a really good life. And I experienced many, many miracles and healings. And you can too. I'm no one special. And what I'm going to share is just universal life wisdom that anyone can apply to their lives and anyone can experience the miraculous. So, I've entitled today's talk, The Teachings of Christ by One Who Was Like Him. So, I always wondered, what did Christ really teach? I'd studied the Bible for many years. I'd been raised a Christian, but I really didn't have a clear sense of what it was. Many passages in the Bible made no sense to me. There were so many different denominations, and I looked at different denominations and different traditions of what, and some of them had very different views on what the actual message of Jesus Christ was. And so I was pretty clear that it had to do with doing good works. And I was pretty clear it had to do with loving God. But that's about the only thing I was sure about in terms of what did Christ actually teach. Until I came across this man, the picture behind me. His name is Bruno Groening. And the picture's a little crooked today. My apologies. Bruno Groening was active in Germany after World War II. And around him, the unfathomable happened. Terminal cases of cancer, completely healed. People who were psychotic and extreme cases of PTSD, literally insane, completely healed. Deaf people regaining their hearing. Blind people regaining their vision. Birth defects, healing, paralyzed people standing up out of their chairs. And this didn't happen once or twice or 10 times or 100 times, but tens of thousands of times. The number of times it happened, we don't even know. I sometimes think maybe 50,000 healings occurred, but that feels a little conservative. But he said that he wasn't doing the healing, that he was merely passing along what he called a divine energy. He called it different terms. He called it the stream of life, and he called it a German word, Heilstrom, which can be translated in many ways. Healing stream, divine current, the energy that saves, the divine frequency, and that he was merely a mediator and passed it along. And he also shared some teachings, which we'll get into a little bit today. And he said, what I'm sharing is not my teaching, but simply the teachings of Jesus Christ. And many people, even if he hadn't said that, many people could easily have seen the parallels. And he didn't say that often, but he did say that sometimes. And the parallels are quite clear. And of course, the healings that happened around him, people describe them as biblical, like scenes out of the Bible. You know, when paralyzed people just stand up, or someone who's blind regains their vision spontaneously. And Bruno Groening didn't treat the people. He just spoke to them and radiated this energy that people could feel. There's truly no words for it. And these healings are continuing today. I've experienced it. Bruno Groening's no longer in his body. He said it wasn't really about him. It was about God and how to connect to God and understanding how life operates and how to live harmoniously in harmony with life, hence with God. So thank you to everyone who's joining in. If you're brand new to all this, at the end of the video, I'll post, I think there's a link. There'll be a link in the description if you'd like more information. And just thank you so much for your time and attention. This teaching and practice saved my life, and I'm utterly convinced it can transform anyone's life who takes it seriously, and it can absolutely transform and, in essence, save this world from every problem. So, one of the key things that Bruno Groening taught, and there's reference to it of Christ teaching it as well. Christ spoke of this thing called the living waters, or the water of life. And Bruno Groening spoke about this often. In fact, it was one of the central things he spoke about. But the question is how to take this energy in. Well, he taught a very simple, you could say it's a technique, but it's really more an attitude. And that's the attitude of wanting to receive it, of having the intention to receive it. In essence, what Bruno Groening said is God is always sending this energy, but it's up to us to take it in. So it's very simple to do. Please sit. You can do this anywhere. You can do it while you're walking or lying down or standing in the line at the grocery store. But we'll do a little more formally right now. Really what it is a way of life, of being connected to God, of, as Christ said, loving the Lord your God with all your heart, mind, and soul, seeking a sense of connection with God every minute of the day. I'm not successful at it yet, but it's certainly what I'm striving towards, to be connected to God every moment of the day. So it's very easy to receive this divine power, this divine energy. Please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards. Back in a relaxed, upright position, not leaning against your chair, if possible. If you need to lean, that's okay. And then please close your eyes. And now hand over all your problems, worries, even illness to a spiritual helper you trust, such as Christ. Bruno Groening said that he could help. If you don't really have a sense of a spiritual helper, you can hand the burdens over to him. Regardless who your helper is, handing over your worries, fears, any illnesses, any situations you're concerned about, and then opening your mind and your heart to receive the divine force, the divine power, the living waters, the life current, and have the intention to take this energy into your body and observe your body. You can say a short prayer asking to receive it and observe your body, noticing what you feel. Having the intention to receive this energy. While observing the body. Having the intention, the will to take in what's good. Noticing what you feel, having the intention to take this energy in. So I'm going to speak a little and probably read a little bit, and I invite you to continue mm, to practice taking in this divine energy while I speak. So what was the if we look at the teachings of Christ as a way of life, which I'm utterly convinced they are, many people like to take one particular verse and then say, oh, this is everything that he taught. But when you look at a whole, the written record, all we have is a written record, which we don't even know to what extent it's an accurate record. Certainly there's some relationship, we just don't know how clear. But what is clear when you look at it as a whole is he called people to a way of life. He didn't call people to a religion. There have been many religions founded around him, but he did call people to a certain way of being. And that was one of the first things why I didn't understand, because I'd been raised in a religion that spoke of Christ, but they didn't really emphasize the way of life. So, what way of life did Christ call us to? First and foremost, to absolutely and completely trust God, to have just unshakable faith in the divine. And this can be a little difficult because many of us were taught that God is actually kind of scary. That if we say or do or think the wrong thing, we'll spend an eternity in hell. It's very hard to trust such a being, much less to love such a being. However, Bruno Groening pointed out that God never punishes, but merely allows the consequences of our actions to unfold. So, if we're going to step into this way of life of trusting God, we need to let go of our old ideas about God, and this being one of the key ones, that God is letting go of the idea of a punishing, wrathful God. It's not possible to trust or love such a being. Will constantly be in fear of doing the wrong thing. Bruno Groening spoke of life as a process that has a specific law, which he called the law of cause and effect. Or as he said, quoting Christ, you reap what you sow. That if we do harmful things, we're going to experience harmful things. Not that we're being punished. It's very physics. It says it very simply. For every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So let's let go of all these old ideas of a wrathful, punishing God. It's not what Christ taught, and it's not what any great mystic, any person who has communed deeply with the divine in their direct experience. No such being has taught that. Let's take on the idea that life and God are harmonious and fair, and that we reap what we sow. So we'll spend a little more time observing the body, taking in this good energy, reflecting on what I said. Please don't take my word for it. Find out for yourself if it's true or not. Taking in this good energy, letting go of what's not good. Asking deep within our heart and soul, is it possible that those old ideas that most of us were taught of a punishing God are just not true? That God is fair and just and good? So we looked at the idea of taking in the power or energy of God and of how to trust God, and that part of that is to let go of some old ideas about God. Now, another key component of the spiritual path, which Christ sort of, we have a record of him alluding to it, but I don't know that he ever said it quite this directly, was how important it is to watch our thoughts. I've heard many Christians in the 20th and 21st century speak of negative thoughts as coming from evil, or even going so far as to say they're from the devil. And Christ, well, in the written record we had, he made mention of this. I don't know that he specifically, we have record of him saying, "And beware of your thoughts, be mindful of your thoughts." Yet Bruno Groening was very adamant that thoughts come from one of two sources, and that thoughts actually motivate our behavior deeply. In fact, he said, push us, coerce us to behave in a certain way. And so it's very important to watch our thoughts and be mindful of them, and to really determine which thoughts are helpful and which thoughts aren't. And anyone who reflects on their experience will notice that their thoughts literally push them to behave a certain way. And not only that, thoughts generate a lot of our emotions. This morning I was in prayer and meditation, and I was having a really nice time. And then all of a sudden, all these negative thoughts started coming, and I started to have intense feelings, and I started to get angry about something that someone said, actually not even said, that someone wrote, and they wrote it yesterday. And here I am today, this morning, in prayer and meditation, having this wonderful feeling of connection with the divine. And all of a sudden, these thoughts start coming, and all of a sudden, these feelings start coming, and then more thoughts start coming. So, anyone who observes themselves will have had the same experience of having a great day and negative thoughts coming along and ruining the mood, if not ruining the day. And then every one of us has done something we regret. Most of us have done we've made hundreds and thousands of bad choices. Where did those choices stem from? What led us to make that choice? Well, Bruno Groening points out that once we take in a negative thought, it pushes us to behave in a certain way. So, in my own reflections, and I invite each person here to reflect on themselves, just reflect on a bad decision you made. And I've always found, and I predict you will always find, that before the negative decision, you will find a negative thought that you took in. And so, what's the solution to this? To stay deeply connected with the divine, to be full of this good energy so that we have the energy available to watch our thoughts and be mindful of them. If we're low on energy, then thoughts just come and we're not really paying attention. So we need to be full of this vital life energy in order to pay attention, to really monitor. Ultimately, the goal is to monitor every thought. And it starts as a practice of becoming aware and saying yes to some thoughts and no thank you, firmly no thank you to other thoughts. So let's spend a little time reflecting on all this, continuing to take in this good energy, letting ourselves be charged up and filled up with life, with the energy of God, observing your body, noticing what you feel. observing your body, noticing what you feel, taking this energy in. So I started off by saying that Christ didn't come to found a religion. He came to show us a way of life. And I've gone over a few of some of the basics of that. And the last principle I'll close with is this idea of alignment, of doing God's will. What does that mean? Well, my understanding, based on um, based on the teachings of Bruno Groening and based on my reading of the Bible, but more just in trying to live it, meaning going throughout my day and asking, okay, God, what's your will? What would you have me do? That in essence, what that complicated thing, doing God's will, it's a very abstract, it sounds abstract and complex. Really, what it is just being in my experience, being in alignment with life, with God, and feeling a push or a pull or having an inspired thought about what the next right action is. It's really not complicated. Being literally steered through life, sometimes pushed by a feeling, sometimes guided by or inspired by a thought, sometimes just having a sense of knowing, oh, this is what I'm to do. Bruno Groening described it very simply. He called it the natural human instinct, that inside each one of us is something that knows what's right and what's not right. And that when we are in touch with that, we just naturally move towards that which is right. And by right, I mean that which is harmonious, that which serves life and contributes to life. So, I've talked about some principles today for how to live your life based on the actual teachings of Christ. But these things aren't just sort of abstract ideas. These are very powerful, real, true ideas that have a profound impact uh, on life. And the whole time I've been inviting people to take in this divine healing energy, or more accurately, this divine energy that heals. And I'd like to share a couple healings that I and others have experienced. I had a very dear friend who, through taking in this energy, I have a very dear friend who she wasn't able to use her computer, but she called me on the telephone once while I was doing one of these online meetings. And I just put the phone next to the computer and put it on speakerphone and just did the meeting as regular. I talked to her later, and she said, first of all, that she had felt the energy so strongly, which is hilarious because it was just like, over a telephone. But also that she had had 3 healings. First of all, she had had tendinitis so bad she could barely take a few steps without pain, and that it completely vanished during the meeting. And she went for a 45-minute hike afterwards, no pain. She also had a migraine that she had had for a week. It disappeared during the meeting. And lastly, after the meeting, she felt that it was time for her to decrease her antidepressant, that she didn't need as much of it anymore. And so that was over a telephone call. This energy is limitless in its power to move around this world and move through the internet. And one of my own healings, what's one? I've had many. What one do I want to share today? I've told it many times, but it was just such a powerful healing. I feel moved to share it again. And I used to have chronic sore throats. Once to twice a week, I would get a sore throat. And if I did not fight it off, I would get sick. And I got sick about 5 times a year. And my colds lasted a very long time. They usually lasted 7 days minimum, or usually 8, 9, or 10 days. And so soon after finding about this teaching, I got sick, sore throat, and it turned into a cold. So I just laid in bed and did this practice of receiving this healing life energy. And I put a book, I think I have the exact book right here. Do I? Where is it? Yeah. I thought I had the exact book. It was this book, but not this copy of the book. And I laid it on top of my throat because people said that pictures of Bruno Groening carry his healing energy. I thought it sounded ridiculous, but I was open to trying. So I just tuned in and laid there with the book there for hours every day. First of all, I got over the cold in I think 5.5 days, which never happened. And the sore throats were gone, completely gone. Now I get a sore throat once a year. How is this possible? We just have to shift our understanding that matter, the way we tend to think is that matter is in charge of life. For example, I have this medical condition, which is really just a configuration of matter, and I'm going to keep on having it. Whereas there is a higher reality. You can call it a spirit of energy that can literally just rearrange matter. And Bruno Groening spoke of this, as did Christ. Christ's entire ministry was based around teaching people how to reconnect to this power for healing, for guidance, for a sense of peace. So I'd like to thank everyone for joining in. Thanks for saying hi, forever loving everything. A big hug received and returned. Thank you for saying hi, Monica Sia. And thank you for the fun emojis. So, if you're new to all this, please feel free to leave a comment after the video or ask any questions. And if you came to this channel because you have any kind of condition or burden or problem, please know that this energy, well, as Christ said, what's impossible for humans is possible for God. Nothing is impossible for infinite, limitless God. Hey, Nikki. Thanks for saying hi. That nothing is incurable and nothing is impossible for God. Thank you so much for joining in. I wish everyone an energy, life-filled morning, afternoon, and evening. I hope to tune in with you soon. Take care. Much love.